Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Josh Levy, CEO and co-founder of Document Crunch, a construction technology company that's raised $38 million in funding. Josh, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm excellent and super excited to have you here. So I was telling you in the pre-interview, I've been speaking with a lot of lawyers who are no longer lawyers. They're becoming founders, and you're another one of them doing that. So talk to us about that plan. When you moved into law, did you have this master plan that someday you were going to go and build a tech company? Or like, how did this all come to be?
It's really funny you say that. I actually remember, so I took a few years between undergrad. I was a construction management major, decided I didn't want to be a project manager or like work on site every day, which is kind of like that track that I was on. And so was kind of trying to figure out what to do. And I actually ended up getting a job as a BDR, then an AE, and then a sales leader at an early stage startup. So that's a whole other story. But after a while, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what a lot of confused kids do that don't really know what to do in their 20s. So I decided to apply to law school. And I remember my older sister called me. I'll never forget that. She called me and she said, like, just based on your personality, you don't seem like, and her husband, by the way, is one of actually the best M&A corporate attorneys in all of America. It's a whole other story. And so I guess he was early in his career at the time. But she said, you don't really seem like Greg. You don't really seem like the lawyer type. What are you doing? Like, don't you think maybe like getting an MBA or something like that would be of interest to you? And I said to her, I said, Jamie, I remember this conversation. I said, here's the deal. I think you may be right, but I do think that if one day I want to be in business, I can learn a business. But they say that, going to law school teaches you a different way to think. Brett, I know we talked about that I love sports. And so I said to her, kind of like in basketball when I was growing up, it was important that I learned how to dribble with my left hand. I think that going to law school and getting experience as a lawyer will allow me to develop maybe a more well-rounded mindset. And so, no, I never had a master plan of starting a company, but I did kind of go in with a general awareness that maybe this would lead to other things. All that to be said, I ended up as a construction attorney, and I really loved what I was doing, especially once I left private practice. And that's why I ended up in Atlanta, because I went in-house with a large contractor. I actually really did enjoy a lot of the aspects of being a construction attorney and a construction executive. So I guess that's a very long-winded way to say, no, I did not have a master plan, but maybe I went in kind of knowing that the world was a big place. And I was just kind of looking, to expand my mindset and horizons a little bit.
So you're working as a construction attorney, and then you are living this pain and decide to go out and solve it? Or what led to the founding of the company?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I ended up over a decade in practice, exclusively construction. So that's a whole other story. But, that construction degree that I had was and has continued to be a lottery ticket for me, because when the whole world was ending, when I graduated law school in 2010, the one area that was hot was construction litigation, because in South Florida, where I lived and went to school, all these large buildings that were built during the boom were now in litigation. And so people that understood the industry, there was a big premium there. And there's not a lot of construction majors that then go to law school. It's not the most common kind of track for, your typical legal professional. So anyway, practiced exclusively construction law, started in litigation, then went to more of a transactional practice, kind of, and then big projects, advising practice. And then that led me to go in-house. And yeah, Document Crunch is really the culmination of my entire life's work, which relates to this idea that the construction industry is super risky. So much of that risk, we are called contractors. So much of that risk relates to the contract documents and other documents. And it's not just negotiating a favorable contract, which is super important, especially when you think about that. Most of this $14 trillion massive industry does not have people like me at sitting in house. 99.999999999% of this TAM doesn't have legal expertise in house. But construction is really unique, man. You don't pull out your investment docs and administrate your company to the investment docs, but 50% of construction projects are finishing over time or over budget, which means that when you commit to building a construction project, you've got the owner, you've got the architect, you've got the engineer, you've got the general contractor, you've got lenders, you've got insurance carriers, all these subcontractors and trades So 50% of these projects are finishing over budget, which means that 50% of the time, one of those stakeholders who thought they were going to make $1 is going to end up having to give something more like back than what they thought they were going to make. So think about that. All of that is completely predicated upon the administration of the contract and the contract documents and the commitments, because external things happen that cause these delays or price escalations, whatever. Someone has to pay. And how the contract documents are administered by the people that were not involved with the legal eagles like me, those people are left, people running projects or operators are left to administrate this thing. The number one cause of litigation in our industry, of which there's a $43 million average lawsuit, which spreads to all stakeholders. It's never just one-on-one, Brett. It's never just, the subcontractor and general contractor dispute. Then the subcontractor brings in the owner brings in the architect brings in the insurance carrier. And it spreads to all these stakeholders that I was talking about. Number one cause of litigation, failure to understand and administer the contract terms by the project teams. Document crunch was the culmination of all of this pain that I'd seen. And I'll just share with you. You can see I have clear doors behind me. So I'd be heads down in-house doing all this legal work that you would expect me to do, because the very few most sophisticated contractors in the entire world have people like me sitting there in-house that get paid a lot of money to be corporate overhead. And I would have a line of people outside my office every day, hard hat in one hand, piece of paper in the other hand. Hey, Josh, something happened on the job site. What do we do? How do we do this? And I knew, first of all, I knew two things. One, if they were in there, that meant it wasn't resolved at the project level, which meant that we were now already starting to incur cost, time. Now I'm here thinking about how to spin it one way. Well, whoever they were talking to was in the other office getting spun another way. So that's one. And these were only the known problems. What about all the workflows, all of which relate to contract compliance that they were going through that no one was telling me about? And only once upon a time down the road was I going to learn that we have a big problem. I'd be oh, it's fine. Let me just see the payment applications or the lien waivers or whatever. And I'd be we're going to lose. Pay them whatever they want. That's where all the risk is in our industry.
Would it be a fair way to summarize it, where you're essentially, I hate to use this word, but democratizing? So you're bringing something that normally a few rich companies can afford, and you're bringing it to the masses of that customer base that just can't afford to have a lawyer like you on staff?
For the initial product that took off in the construction industry, that's 100% what we're doing. So I'm sure you've read a lot about Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
Think of us as the Harvey for the construction industry. But the difference is that Harvey sells to all legal professionals. We're selling to all the non-legal experts, because these folks every single day are bidding work and having to sign contracts, and may or may not be getting sufficient counsel as they're doing that. And so we help democratize, like you said, those areas to at least bring awareness, so that it's not a total replacement for lawyers or anything like that, but it does help raise that awareness and democratize that information. But here's the other point, Brett. Even in the biggest companies that do have people like me sitting in the back office, we're similarly democratizing best practices and compliance to the people in the field. Because even if you could afford to have someone like me and a team of people like me in your company, while we're on the phone right now, while we're on this podcast right now, guess what? A superintendent is out there walking the job site, concrete's about to be poured, and the superintendent needs to know if the rebar, which is supposed to reinforce that concrete, is the right size. Somewhere else down the road, an owner is yelling at a project manager that they can't charge them for a certain cost that's on the payment application. Somewhere else down the road, a team is wondering, it's raining outside, what the appropriate way to perfect their rights to more money would be for the delay. And the point is that the failure to have confidence and ability to administer these things the right way in real time leads to a few things. The superintendent's not sure what rebar was specified. It gets poured. Maybe we learn later it was wrong. We have to tear it out. Maybe, worst case scenario, it fails because it wasn't right. So that's why, two, the owner is yelling at the project manager about an item that's reimbursed. The project manager is not confident. So the project manager writes it out of the payment app and never gets paid for a cost that the contractor incurred. Contractor is now giving $1 back that it didn't have to give. Third, the team isn't sure what the right notice provisions are. They send a text to the owner that says, hey, it's raining. We're not going to be on the job site today. But the contract, who is written like someone like me, says, if you don't give proper notice by US mail within 48 hours of the event with this bold font to the owner, you waive any and all claims for any delay claims that you may have. So now the team's eating money. This is where all the risk is in our industry that has very thin margins anyway. And all of those missteps leads to fee loss for our industry, but even worse, that's when claims occur, when there's confusion. And we talked about the litigation risk too.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode.
Reminds me of in cybersecurity, I don't know if you've heard this term, like the shift left in cybersecurity. So the idea that needs to go deeper or earlier into the process for developers, and developers themselves need to be building and writing code with security in mind, as opposed to waiting until the end of that production process and then having security get involved. Sounds like you're doing something very, very similar, right? You're shifting that at the start instead of when they're standing in your office, standing out.
I've never heard that, but I think it's brilliant. And the reality is, I mean, so if we started as Harvey for like construction back office use cases, now think of like where we've gone is we've jumped into the construction phase of the project. And what we're doing, I'll say it another way, is we're democratizing and ensuring that best practices around document compliance are followed, which therefore will eliminate downstream latent risk that's accruing every day and leading to a lot of pain and suffering for our industry.
When we think about the general marketing strategy, what was the marketing strategy like in the early days? What's it evolved to today?
Incredible thing is that whole problem space that I just described to you was exactly what we set out to do 6 years ago.
Wow. That's pretty rare for a founder to be able to say that.
Yeah. 0 freaking pivots, man. 0. I always knew that we had a problem, not just in the back office, but in the field. Again, I mean, I just literally would see it outside my office every day. All that to be said, there is now a third horizon that's starting to emerge, which I could have never like truly understood, which is, I think that the industry is looking for more proactive risk management in this new AI world. So, there'll be more. I can't really get too far into it right now, but I think that you'll see that our platform continues to expand further and further than just enabling best practices in the back office and in the field.
On the marketing side, though, like, are there tactics that you were doing early on that you've stopped doing? Like, is there anything that you were really seeing working, like tactically speaking? What were you doing from a marketing perspective?
It's funny you say that. We've had a bit of a full circle moment here. When we started this thing, I'm a first-time founder. I've never done this before, construction lawyer. We were very excited to talk about that we were bringing AI to this. And this was 6 years ago. I guess we hadn't gone to market till about 4.5, 5 years ago. So we spent we were at stealth. Mm-hmm. We were very much marketing the features. Mm-hmm. And pretty early on, I met a marketing consultant who spent some time with me, and he was like, you need to be speaking to the problem more and to the features less. And that really resonated with me because I'm not a tech guy. Mm-hmm. I don't really care about technology in my personal life. I tell the document crunch, we call them the crunchers. I tell our team all the time, we're not an AI company. We're a solving complex risks for our industry company. And so anyway, I would say the overwhelming majority of our outstanding run has been staying very, very focused on the problem space that I kind of just outlined for you. And that being a key to us, and again, these are terms I would never know back then, but in this vertical space that is the construction industry, I think the fact that we've come to this very authentically, with the background that I have and that now the team has, because we put together one hell of a team purpose-built for this industry. Our messaging, I think, has been very resonant. Our authenticity around the problems and our desire to solve those problems has been very resonant. The reason why I'm saying we're coming full circle, Brett, is as you know, the whole world's lost their damn mind around AI. And so I think that we're kind of the OGs for the construction AI space, though for 3 years, we weren't talking about AI at all. But now that this mass adoption is taking place, what I've learned is that there's a true market desire for trusted AI partners, because I guess there's a mandate essentially hey, we have to figure out a way to work this into our processes. This isn't unique to construction. And so it is a little bit of a full circle moment, because now we're not just being viewed as solving the problems that we're solving for, but we're actually being viewed as a trusted AI platform for the construction industry. So I think you probably see a little bit more of that in our marketing messaging today than you did a year and a half ago. But yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, otherwise, man, I'll share with you, our go-to-market has certainly become more sophisticated over time, like just what we're doing to acquire customers and how that motion works. But man, in a vertical space like ours, brand reputation matters so much. And I think that's not something you can fake your way to. That's earned on the conference floor. That's earned in the relationships. That's earned in the way you treat your customers from the very beginning of time. What I'm very confident to say to you now, Brett, is putting aside marketing tactics, everyone is talking about how much like AI is going to disrupt the way we work and talking about like this future state. I am not aware of any solution anywhere in the world across any segment or sector that is actually providing as much value or disrupting the way the industry works as much as Document Crunch is doing for the construction industry today. And if you combine that, does it mean we're perfect? No, but it does mean what I just said. And if you combine that with a brand that's been authentic and that is like literally built by builders, it's a group that we're a part of. It's not just me. I mean, I'll share with you, with our staff, if you wanted to go run a $200 million construction project right now, we have an internal staff in place that could do that. That's like who's built our software, and including even the engineering team that's all been building for our vertical for so long. When you combine that outstanding product with that empathy for the industry, which is gained over time, it's a potent force. We did not always have the best product. It's hard, man. Product market fit is hard. You got to inch by inch, right? But we do have product market fit now. But what we've always had from the very beginning is this huge desire to partner with and solve our industry's problems. And wow, has the industry embraced us, and especially post product market fit, where now they don't only appreciate the way we're going about our business, but they're coming back saying like, this is changing everything now. Like, thank you for listening and doing what you need to. And I would say that authenticity has been there from the very beginning. And I'm really not a tech guy. I'm a construction guy at the end of the day.
The fact that you are a construction guy, I have to assume that that's the foundation that's led to all these amazing things happening. You not having to make any pivots, you having trust within the industry. That has to really come down to the fact that like you lived this problem, you could solve this problem for yourself. You aren't some 19-year-old Stanford grad saying like, how do we get rich? You lived this and you built the solution for yourself.
You can't fake what the experience brings to you. So like, it's funny you say that. When we talk about the product roadmap, do you know what I do, man? I close my eyes and I think about interactions that I've had with the stakeholders that now are our user base in my former life. Like, that's what guides my telling people what we need to build. Now, does that mean I had put a good UI on it? Hell no. Does that mean I know how to write the code? Hell no. But that empathy is there. And yes, it's been a huge asset. And the great news is it's not just me anymore. I've been able to assemble together just a team of complete construction rock stars that come from industry, that come from building software from the industry. And yeah, I think it's why we've had the growth that we've had. And frankly, have made a dent in the industry like we have.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their U.S. and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
I'm seeing more and more construction tech startups. When I look back at the first few years of doing this, like I didn't speak to that many. Now I'm seeing more and more. What's that been like for you trying to like raise funds for a construction company 5 years ago compared to today?
It's a great question. Construction is definitely nuanced. It's not like just your typical, there's not very many $0 to $10 million in 1 year ARR stories. Like construction's, historically been a little bit more weary of tech adoption. Like to your point, you can't go to market in our industry based on some thesis that was ginned up in B school on an industry that needs to be digitized. That's not how this works. And I guess to answer your question, I think probably even predating me, there's been some great leaders. I mean, we have a very deep partnership with Procore. They're obviously very strategic distribution and just overall partnership with them. They're obviously the lodestar, right? I mean, they're like a great story in the space. Then you've had other massive successes like PlanGrid. Well, if you think about PlanGrid, I mean, the two guys leading my sales team were two of the rock stars at PlanGrid that then, were at Autodesk post-acquisition and running big go-to-market teams there, and now are my sales guys. But anyway, I think the appetite is increasing, certainly, because I think construction historically has gotten a bad rap with its appetite for adoption and innovation. And some of that is earned, and some of that is because maybe outsiders were trying to come in and just weren't resonating. The reality is that we're seeing mass adoption of document crunch in construction. And I'd like to think that we're starting to look like a lodestar example of how this can work too. And there's other great companies out there as well. So I would say there's definitely been more focus on construction in the last period of time. I'm trying to think and I guess over a 5-year period, I mean, like, it's hard to say, Brett, because we've had such massive growth over that 5-year period that I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, and so it's hard for me to truly answer like that. But I think that as more and more great companies have successes, of course, there's going to be an appetite. It's $14 trillion global economy. So go do the math, man. I mean, go show me another TAM that looks like that. And so, yeah, I think that as long as you have appetite for the nuances that come with building and going to market in our industry, I mean, I'm going long on construction tech because this is such an interesting phenomenon that's happening here. Like, profits have shrunk and productivity is shrinking in construction, yet it's becoming a riskier industry. But at the end of the day, look around, like, we need data centers, we need more housing. Like, this is never going away. And so anything that drives like innovation that leads to either, increased productivity or less risk equals more profit. Like, there's a lot of opportunity. I'm so bullish on the opportunity for our industry to be more profitable and better and more joyous because it's super important. And it's frankly like a bedrock of our world. I mean, we're not living in the jungle, in an unstructured environment, quite the contrary.
What advice would you have to founders who do want to build in construction tech? Let's imagine they are that graphic we were just talking about. They are in business school, they're writing a thesis. Like, should they just not even bother in construction tech? Can they succeed? Like, what would be your advice to them?
I believe that my founder market fit was a huge unlock at the onset of this venture. It's still important and part of our origin story, but we've gotten beyond that now. But I'm sure it's in our DNA somewhere. I don't want to ever say never. But my advice would be, you better be like the most empathetic, open-minded person in the world, because this is a unique industry. And you also better go find a co-founder or someone close that has a deep, deep, deep understanding of our industry. Otherwise, yes, I think it would be very hard. And frankly, like, my VCs ask me to look at companies all the time. And that would be like a very, I'd say at a minimum, founder market fit is like a prerequisite. If you were looking at probable outcomes, does that mean that every successful company has to have that? No, but that would be my advice. I wouldn't ever say never, but you've got to develop a point of view that's born in an experience. And so that's either got to be someone really close to you or you're willing to like have the experience.
Makes perfect sense. Final question for you now. I know you teased us a little bit about some stuff you're working on you can't talk about, but paint a picture for us. 3 to 5 years from today, what does the company look like? What does your impact look like?
Yeah, how about this? I'll leave you with this thought. Today, based upon those two problem spaces that I described to you, based upon the pull that we've gotten from the market, and based upon the growth that we're having, I am 100% convinced that every single project on planet Earth now needs document crunch. I'm convinced of that, just because of the automation and installation of best practices that we're doing. And so are we going to be on every project in the world in 2 years from now? That's a big ambition given, where we're at today with our roughly 100-person company. But we know that we're on a path to being on every project in the world. And I feel confident that we don't need to develop any new product to effectuate that, right? We just need to keep scaling a business. However, what I will challenge myself on is if that's enough, because in 2 years from today, can we start showing measurable results for a more profitable industry by virtue of what we're doing? And I think that's my personal holy grail, because it's like my mission, man. I want this industry to be better and I want to make it better. And I think we've already started to make it better, but I think we can make it a lot better. And so I think in 2 years from today, you'll start to see document crunch be synonymous with better results and better outcomes.
One final question came to mind. So you're a sports guy. Imagine you could have anyone, living or dead, player or coach, be your personal advisor. Who would it be and why? What would you be hoping to get from them being your advisor?
What an incredible question. Since you're putting me on the spot right now, I will say that I'll go back to the guy who I just told you whose book I'm reading from the 90s, Pat Riley, right? So I'm a big Miami Heat fan. But the reason why I think Pat Riley is so interesting is because I think that he's been able to architect, manage, and successfully achieve incredible results across a myriad of generations organizations and individuals. And I think that like there's plenty of other people too, but I am very fascinated. You think about like a scaling company, you need to create an environment to attract the best talent. So I think he's done a great job of that. But then once the talent's on board, you need to create an environment where, diverse and different personality types can not only coexist, but thrive. I think he's done that. And I guess what I'm saying again is he didn't do that once, he didn't do that twice. He's done that over like 40 years. And I just think that consistency is what I find to be so fascinating. There's obviously flashes of greatness all around us. I am very interested in making Document Crunch a sustainable, long-term platform that impacts our industry over the long haul. And I think that he's just seems to have shown a lot of experience in doing that. And so I think that's who I would say.
Love that answer and a great way for us to end. Before we wrap here, if anyone's listening in and wants to follow along with you, where should we send them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Just go Josh Levy, Document Crunch. Some people know me as Captain Crunch. I don't know if you saw the little doll up there behind me, but no, I'm on LinkedIn. And then, we're at documentcrunch.com as well. We're very active. We, would love to hear from you. So please come on by.
Amazing. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.